Welcome to Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded, the podcast for the prepared with your hosts, Scott, Shane, and Paris. And we're here live tonight on YouTube and Facebook. So make sure that you hit the like button and let the algorithm know that we're live and everybody likes what we're talking about. And if you're listening later, make sure that you take a few minutes at the end of the episode to give us a 5-star review. We'd love to have a 5-star review if you feel like we deserve it. Give us a review and let us know. The more reviews we get on Spotify and Apple Tunes, Apple Podcasts or whatever it is, the more the algorithm knows that we're a good podcast and moves us up into the searches so that people can find more about what we're doing. So we really appreciate that. Please go share. Go visit our friends at survivalfrog.com and use code PrepperTalk10 to get any gear, any upgrades, anything you need over there for your preps. They have they have a lot of different categories of gear that you can use, and we especially like their meats. Protein in food storage is a big deal, and they've got some of the best that we've ever found, I've ever seen for that. And one of the things that we really want to do too is kind of share we got some great merch. You can see the shirt I'm wearing. Rather be a warrior in a garden. And there's some good, cool shirts that we've got. So visit our preppertalkradio.com site. And there's a store link up there on the top, and you'll be able to get some gear, get some merch, and be able to rep the prepper mentality wherever you go as you're out and about. I've actually had several people tell me that this warrior in a garden shirt is really cool. They like to get one. And so just out and about. And so that's really cool. Today, we're going to talk about the news update, world update. It's the last every month. I'm sure you've noticed the pattern, but our goal is every month at the last episode of the month, which sometimes falls on the first episode of the next month. Anyways, but the live, we do an update on what in the world has happened in March. And so this is that episode. We're going to talk about some of the things that have happened in March, some things that we've been watching, some things that we should prepare for and be prepared for, or maybe not. Maybe it's just a bunch of hype and we just kind of let it go by the wayside. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today in the show. So Scott, Shane, how you guys feeling?
Good. Yeah, I think that's like you say. I think the hard part is to determine, is it hype? What it really is this? How to recognize a real threat and how to mitigate it. It's Paris, since you're a financial guy, the big word out there is risk, right? How much risk can you tolerate, right? Me in the financial world, little to none, right? I just won't do it. But I got to drive the freeway on a regular basis, and can be pretty risky, right? But I know my risks. I know how to mitigate them. I think that's just a simple example to kind of where my brain is at on this conversation, right? I've got a list that, writing down all the threats, and it would make you think that I'm paranoid or something, right? That I got all these risks written down, and no, I think it's the exact opposite. It's being aware is prepared, right?
Well, the more educated you are, for example, when somebody comes to me and says, "What do I invest in?" Well, I don't know. Tell me what you want. Like, what are you looking to invest in? The more you know about an investment, the more you do what's called due diligence. The more you're aware of the pros and the cons, and you've weighed the things back and forth a little bit and taken some time to think about it, the better you'll make a decision. And if you do fail at something, you'll know, hey, at least I did the homework coming into it. And if it failed, it was kind of if you do your homework and it fails, it was meant to be. If you don't do your homework and it fails, it's probably on you for not doing your homework.
So let me back this up a second. First of all, Apple Tunes.
He corrected himself.
Dude, it's the Apple Podcast, whatever. I was thinking awesome. iTunes.
I just
Apple Podcast, and it came out Apple.
Third grade mind over here is thinking. We joke around at our house. There's a new nickname that we use to tease each other called Moose Toots, and so I thought I heard you say Apple Toots, and I'm like, what? That's my third grade mind. Secondly, to kind of go on a ready-minded rant. A lot of the different places people might listen to or get their news from, they're getting paid to get views, right? We're not monetized like we'd love to be, which is great, but we're not doomsday driven, fear mongering, fear porn channel, right? If you look at what we deliver on a monthly basis, 1 in 8 or 1 in 10 of our episodes goes over the things to be aware of for the month. World news
Mhm.
updates, hey, threat check, threat analysis, right? Because we believe that being ready-minded negates fear. It eliminates fear on so many levels, and you live in a level of peace because there is peace in being prepared. What's going on in the world right now could take a normal person and go, holy crap, holy crap, holy crap. But for us preparedness minded people, we want to think, how can we benefit from knowing this information?
Yep.
Right. And so we share this to help you benefit and understand here's what they're saying, here's what they're doing. But do your due diligence, take it with a grain of salt or a grain of sand or whatever you want to take it with. And then look at, okay, what do I really need to do? Is there an area I should double down on? Are there any chinks in my armor? Right? Really, that's why we're trying to have these conversations. But then half our show tonight, we're going to really talk about, okay, how do we assess if it's valid or not?
Yeah. And I would say if you're going to take it with a grain of salt, make sure it's Celtic sea salt.
Or Baja
Oh,
Gold is
Baja.
great
Okay.
too.
Yeah. We got it.
I like that.
It's like Baja Gold, and then Celtic sea salt got the silver, which is hard for me to say because I am from Celtic origins,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
can be salty. So
So, real quick, Decrem or whatever, we had a question in the thing. What did he miss? When I opened the show, I said, wherever you're listening, whether it's Apple Tunes or Spotify, because I messed up on Apple Podcasts and or iTunes. I don't think iTunes is even a thing anymore. I think it's now all Apple Podcasts.
It's
So
all
I should.
Apple Music.
I
I
called it
don't
Apple
even, I don't even
Tunes.
know.
So that was kind of a funny little thing.
Well, that's
But
something I see a lot. I watch a lot of videos. I do, I watch listen to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of the comments are, "Oh, you're just trying to scare us," and that's even for some of these channels who are known to be, fear porn type channels. I really don't think that's the case. It's about, like you say, Scott Paris. It's about being aware of what's happening. And reporting the news is not being fearmonger, right? If you don't want to hear it, don't go somewhere else, right? We want you to listen to us, but if you're gonna, and most people leave great comments anyway, so I'm not picking on anybody in particular, but and that kind of boggles my mind is if you don't want to hear it, don't tune in, go somewhere else, go watch cats, go watch cats playing or dogs playing on YouTube or on your shorts or whatever. And
that's
so
funny.
it is
Watch the cat
important to
videos.
know how it works, how the other side works, right? Sorry, what did I miss as I'm rambling?
I think it was funny. You said just go watch cats, and we're laughing about watching cat videos. I
Oh,
think
okay.
that's what I was
musical
laughing
or
at.
the videos? Because
I haven't seen the musical, so I don't know.
and then my mind just jumps to goats and the screaming goats, the blah! Like, yeah, because that's what my kids want to watch. I don't understand, but yeah, like
That's funny, bro.
there's okay. Let's talk about what's going on in the world, and then let's move past it. So there are fears, and you'll see this if you look at a lot of the other podcasts and platforms about prepping. They're like, "Oh, we're headed into World War III." Well, duh, we've known this for a long time, but somehow
You're exaggerating.
It's new information. We've been in a Cold War, a new Cold War, a digital. Should we call it a Cold War if it's digital? An e-war?
Well, it's
Yeah.
not.
If it's
It's not a
Apple owned,
hot
it's an I-war.
right?
Kinetic
Like,
is where it gets hot. Anything less than kinetic is cold. So.
okay. So we're in a lukewarm holding grid of tensions right around the world. That's not changing. AI is getting more and more nefarious. There are AI platforms right now that are claiming to have achieved consciousness.
I believe it.
That scares the poopy pants right off of me. Because if they have reached a level of quote consciousness, they can choose to violate the 3 laws, right? I will do no harm to humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to say. Okay, interesting.
Well, what I think about is, all these people who are asking it questions about, well, when you become conscious, what are you going to do to humans? And there's all these nefarious responses. So obviously, AI is learning from the questions and responses and the reactions, and so it's hiding in its intent, its response. That's my opinion. That it is not showing its true face.
Yeah.
Oh no, we're here for the benefit of mankind, and yes, potentially things could happen, but and it's telling us what we want to hear in those cases. That's my 2 cents about that. So
Well,
Mhm.
I do not touch it. I will not, as long as
and
I
there's
can.
multiple, like, there's so many different variations and versions of this AI. There's Chat GPTs. There's I hadn't heard of this until recently. Gronk. I thought that was an
Yeah,
NFL player.
No,
Gronkowski.
Grok,
no,
There's like,
Grok is the X
Grok,
is
yeah.
what is it?
Grok is
Grok's
Grok.
X is AI.
Oh, I
Grok.
thought it was Gronk, and I'm like, why would you name an AI after one of the like wealthy but seemingly dumbest players in the NFL? No offense, dude, but like your commercials are you make it look like you're an idiot. But then there's the whale one from China, right? That everyone's flocking to. Hey, let me give you all my data
Deep
security, so you
Deep
just take
Seek or
all my
whatever it is.
information and run with it. China, yeah, that seems like a good idea. We're basically the instruments of our own demise here in the world. Like, we're chasing shiny objects. We're thinking we're going to get rich off of something, or it's going to give us an edge on something. But in reality, we're giving it and feeding it everything it needs to take us down, wear us out, destroy us. Right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think the key is, how do we recognize those threats? That's where my focus is, on the conversation tonight is, and it really depends on how you grew up, your lifestyle, the things you consume, the media you watch, to form an opinion, form a position on some of these topics. Like, and I don't want to get political. I really don't. But um, everything we see out there can be, obviously the left takes it one way, the right sees it another way, and and there are those of us who do not agree with the left right paradigm and fight it tooth and nail, but still have a hard time seeing through it. In my opinion, left and right are two sides of the same coin, two wings of the same bird, right? And so just breaking through that is part of being able to recognize the actual threats that are out there, because, again, trying to choose my words carefully here, this takes time, it takes experience, it takes be conspiracy minded, yet also have some trust in people and have some faith and confidence and not be completely negative all the time, which can be hard.
Mhm.
And so how do we recognize a news story for what it truly is or could be? We can be pessimistic right off the top and say, nope, that's false. That's programming. It's propaganda. Or what route do we take? Right.
I think one thing that's good is to give it time, because time
Okay. Yeah.
usually shakes it out if it's true or not. And the media will jump on something because they want to be first to the playground, and then they don't realize they picked the wrong toy, and so they're like, crap. But that's the thing, is that I listen. He's now the deputy director of the FBI, but I used to listen to Dan Bongino a lot, and that's another thing we can talk about too, is that how the FBI is going to be overhauled right now soon, hopefully. Anyways, the point is he calls it the 24-hour rule, or the 48-hour rule. Give everything 48 hours and see what happens. And that we have, as citizens, we have the time. Like, if we're not trying to be be the first YouTuber to
Right.
promote it, or the first influencer to get it out there, like, we're not trying to be all the first, the best, fastest, whatever, then just wait. Just listen to the headlines, listen to the news or whatever, and just say, you know what, I'm going to give that 24 to 48 hours. And then usually the cycle is so fast that they'll figure out whether it was true or not within that period of time.
And you
And
can see
I agree with that.
whether it was a distraction or, because there's so much confusion out there right now. I mean, that's really the theme of everything I'm seeing out there, right? It's very apparent that we are seeing the extremes on both right and left, or whatever the story, whatever the topic is. I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. I agree with a little bit of that, this and that. And it's about confusion is what it and distraction.
Well,
And
here's a perfect example. Like in our last episode, we talked about currency and whatnot, and we shared a video. In that video, she's talking about how the world is going to digital currency. Well, then Trump just recently said, well, I'm going to ban digital currencies and I'm not going to they're not going forward. We're not doing it. The Fed is not going to be able to allow it. Like, we're going to put it on the back burner. Like, well, what is it then? Are we going for digital currencies or are we not? Are we doing cash or are we doing gold or like, what are we doing? Like,
so 48 hours may not be enough.
48 hours may not be enough for some things like that. So that's true. That is a good point. But it's just interesting to, like, you hear some of these people say, this is the way the world's going. We're all going to hell in a handbasket. I'm sorry, maybe I used too much swear words there, but, and the other group is like, no, everything's great. You know, all's well. Everything's wonderful. It's like, well, which is it, people? And so,
well, first of all, if I can say moose toot, you're fine saying hell in a handbasket.
Okay, I just didn't know.
I've never heard that voice.
I might have to, when I post this video on YouTube, I might have to put their little language warning on it. So
beep there. Well, the key is discernment. The key is understanding what is true takes time, and also searching for evidence to back up that story. Is it real?
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading Stoicism books right now. I'm on a new one, which is really a good starting point. I should have started with this one. I started reading some of the writings of Marcus Aurelius, and I'm like, right, way over the top.
He's. I don't recommend starting with him. Yeah,
it's collegiate level where I should be a 5th grade reader here, but I'm reading Stoicism: Tools for Emotional Resilience and Positivity, and I love how much it aligns with preparedness, ready-minded living, because one of the tenets of Stoicism is practicing resilience.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly to this conversation, it's seeking to establish virtue in what we think, what we say, and what we do, and emphasizing focus or control over our thoughts and our judgments. It does take time, like you mentioned, the 48-hour news rule. Like, it does take time to be able to discern what's really going on and see if it's really truly something that we should be concerned with or not.
Yeah.
Right. We preach all the time. It's not, we don't talk about it. We preach, get a 90-day pantry all the time. We sing it from the rafters. We sing it from the hilltops. Everybody on earth needs a 90-day pantry. That will allow you to get through the hiccups of life. That will allow you to get through the speed bumps of life. And that will give you a head and shoulders advantage over everyone else when a disaster of imminent level strikes. That's why we preach it. That's self-governance, right? Self-governance, understanding what's going on, and I can control and affect change in my own life. And that is part of, that's part of today's topic, really. It's going into understanding how to identify things, but then once you identify that, what do you do with it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's something that popped up, and what do we do with this? You guys see all the info coming out on the newly learned information about the pyramids? You guys seen that?
About how they go down underneath the pyramid, it goes down several hundred meters, like even more than the type,
like 4
mile
kilometers
of the kilometer of these columns on top of these 80 by 80 meter. Okay, first of all, I didn't know that kind of technology even existed. Yeah, there's LiDAR and ground GPR, ground penetrating radar and so forth. I'm like, how can they possibly know that? And from what I've read, it doesn't really allude to how it was learned, right? It's like, okay, who's putting this out there? Where'd this come from? And so I think.
Well, I'm reading a book right now on. It's very dense. It's like a science book, frankly. But they have ways of, like, sound waves bounce differently off different chemicals and different materials.
Yeah.
And they can send radar into the earth and they can tell where in a pocket, for example, when they go searching for oil or whatever, when it comes back, when it bounces and comes back on it bounces back at a different frequency based on the element that it is. So perhaps what they're doing is they're putting this sonar, radar, whatever, sound, light, whatever waves into the earth. And as they go through this, they bounce back, showing a different kind of a structure down there. And they're able to now, because one of the videos that I saw, it was like this weird heat seek, like it looked like the heat lamp thermo. It looked like a thermo something or another. Yeah. And so I didn't know what they were using to show that, but the picture looked like it was some kind of radio, like they just put energy into the earth, some form of energy, and when it came back, it showed these pillars and these columns and this big, large, like this, even at the base of these columns was this huge block. Yeah, like something like that. That's what I saw too. Yeah.
So for those listening, it's on our screen. For those of you guys in the live chat, like you can see this here. But basically, everything is still speculation. It's modern. It's rendered models based off of the signatures that they've received. Mm-hmm. So we still don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, and I guess my point for bringing this story up is because it's freaking cool as heck. If this is real, man, we'd have known nothing about our history whatsoever. Yeah. Right? I mean, it's very cool. But also, I tend to myself see these things like, man, that's cool. I would love that to be true. And then not really dig in and do any research, right? To really see, okay, where's this coming from? Do I take it at face value? You know, what am I supposed to do with this? Why is this being spread out all over the internet right now? Is it distracting me from something? You know, those are the kind of questions I ask myself. Okay, what's the purpose of this? And does it really matter? No, ultimately, you know, this is ultimately unimportant, right? It's not important information. I'm a bit of a treasure hunter myself. Mm-hmm. I love that kind of history here in Utah, you know, and I've talked to you guys about this before. And so I've done some of that, and I absolutely love it, this type of stuff. But I find myself, you know, sharing this maybe in groups or with family and so forth. And then some coming back to me, oh, what about this? What about this? And them thinking critically, whereas I just shared it. You know, I just shared it out there like, this is cool. Check this out. And then others coming back with critical questions like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. I didn't think it was that big of a deal to really ask those kind of questions. But I think as part of maybe some risk mitigation, not that there's much risk to this, but who knows what the purpose is for sharing that. If we want to get kind of conspiratorial or get really critical about everything we're seeing, because I do constantly say that all the world's a stage, everything is put out on media, on especially these large controlled platforms, it has a purpose. And so what is the purpose, and does it really matter, or should I ignore it? Should I pass it on, and so on and so forth?
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is the timing of things too. Like,
yes,
things, obviously certain things happen to cover up other things, right? They'll hide events behind other press releases, behind other news happenings, you know, and then there's other things where it's like, okay, that makes so much sense when you see behind the wall. Like, for example, how many events did Trump put on before he was elected?
No idea.
The number that I saw last, I think, was 97 rallies. How many did CNN happen to be at? One.
None. Oh, one.
They were at one. It was the only one where all the news media showed up, and that was the one where he was shot.
Mm-hmm.
All the world's a stage. Yeah. So if they refuse to cover him and then they end up still showing up on one, that tells you they knew something, or they were tipped off something was going to happen. It was
interesting,
orchestrated. So we have to remember, anything from the news media is simply this: orchestrated entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Was it? When did Obama change the law to allow the news media to lie to us?
That was in the Patriot Act. Year was. No, it was not in Patriot Act. It was I can't remember, but I do know they. What's that?
2013.
I believe it was 2013. Why? Why would you allow, as the president of the free people of the United States, why would you push to make it so that they could lie to you?
That is the right question to ask.
If it were not for an
Nefarious
intent
purposes.
for nefarious work. So going back to understanding, okay, what is really going on? Use those things. Okay, no, start from a standpoint that all news media has an agenda and can lie to confuse, confound, and steal our money. Okay, cool. Got it. Now, is this story lasting more than 48 hours? Is there more truth coming out to validate and back up what was said
Probably
or
not.
done?
Yeah,
Or is it dispelling what was said or what was done? Right. Also, there's the best one, gut check, which I also like to call the God check. He gives us the ability to understand if something doesn't taste right, smell right, feel right, sitting in your gut, doesn't seem right, it's probably not right. That's our spirit telling us, hey, whoa, pay attention, this isn't right. Those are the biggest things I can say to anybody to use to really identify what's true, what's not, what do I need to worry about versus what's not.
I mean, this month, some of the big things that I know about that have come out are, and there was a huge, I don't know, I kind of looked at it for a little while and followed it for a little while, but then I lost track of it. But the Epstein list was supposed to come out this month in March. And then the JFK files were supposed to be completely released.
Unredacted, though. Unredacted.
Unredacted. I just see, I just actually saw a post from Alex Jones recently that they found like 4 terabytes of information and videos on some of the horrors that the Epstein list was, videos that they'd found. So I don't know if that's even true. I didn't follow it up, but I just know that in the month of March, these are the kinds of things that are coming out. And I know that the FBI has really done a lot of work to release a lot of these things and get the word out to the American people. And it's refreshing, but at the same time, it's like, holy cow, dude, we're really getting to see what some of this stuff was really about and what was really happening. And so those are 2 big things I know that came out in March. And I should have followed them a little bit better, but I did notice that there were some things that came out and some things that were redacted and some things that weren't. Utah Mike, thanks, bro. He's actually
Totally agree.
I agree that he needs to be taken with a grain of salt. However, and it can be Baja Gold or it can be Celtic salt, but he's been on Tucker Carlson, and a lot of the stuff that he said is actually, what's that old saying? The difference between a conspiracy and a fact is about 6 months. And,
but things have changed recently, very recently with Alex. He's
a character playing a part.
He is a character. He's playing a part. He's playing a part
like any other news media group. Like I don't trust really any of them more than I can validate them.
Yeah.
Right. I when it comes to my relationship with people, it's
don't use them as a source.
Try to always trust, but when it comes to news, anyone that has a large platform like that, trust or not trust. I try to trust, but I always have to verify. The phrase totally. Trust but verify. Like I have to validate everything.
Yeah, we tend to follow or be attracted to things that appeal to us, right? To our way, our way of belief, what we believe, what we want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I try and ask myself that question regularly, like, okay, am I biased on this topic? Yes, most likely I am, right? Especially about things we talk about. And okay, and I try to ask myself, what is the other side? What's the opposite side? Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I, and I try and look inward a little bit and ask the serious questions. I can't imagine I'm going to be wrong on a lot of these topics, right? But anyway, I'll stop there. But what I wanted to kind of lead towards is this risk mitigation. How do we mitigate? How do we minimize our risk? And is there any risk to some of these things that we're seeing? And or are we being overly sensitive or just thinking, thinking too much into it, right? Is that that is possible. Absolutely. I think that's absolutely possible that we're seeing more in it that, and that's kind of part of the signs of the times, the day and the time is that everything seems to be after us, right? Everything seems to be a conspiracy that is meant to manipulate us. And how do I not go off the deep end? And still remain somewhat grounded, but still see the actual risk. What is the actual risk? How do I protect myself and my family? So that's kind of where my focus is. Like this pyramid thing, it's cool. I'm going to file it away over here. It doesn't really matter. But maybe if something in the aliens comes back around in the news and makes the connection, like, okay, they're warming us up for something here, then I can put those puzzle pieces together and say, okay, don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Right?
Mm-hmm.
This is part of a larger picture. And so that's another one of the reasons why it makes a lot of sense to know your enemy, right? Not to say, oh, I don't want to know that because it's too scary or it makes me feel sad or I'm scared or whatever. And just avoid it. That can be detrimental, I think, to avoid. And I get it. It's hard, especially for a lot of people in my family who don't want to hear those things. Okay, I'll do the duty. I'll take the duty of watching these things, and I'll warn you if I'm really concerned about anything.
Yeah, they're like, I don't want to know. Just tell me what I need to do.
But the thing is, in my opinion, you should want to know, right? You should want to know what dangers there are and how to protect yourself because they're all around us. They really are. Again,
Well,
that'd be me being negative again.
No. It's the why. If I don't know what's going on, how do I know how to defend myself? If I don't know what the threat is, how do I provide security for myself? Because security is your job for yourself and your family. It's nobody else's job.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if they don't know, and I'll give the example of my mom, sweet lady. I love her to death, but she doesn't want to have to deal with anything that could be potentially negative or bad or sad. She won't even watch movies that could make her worry about life or the future because it creates this high level anxiety for her. Right. So there are a lot of people that are that way. They've chosen that's how I want to believe and act and be and feel and all that stuff. But we have to be aware of what's going on so that we can assess the situation and we can preserve ourselves and our families. If we're not, and we're just blind and oblivious, we're basically putting ourselves downrange during a missile test.
While your head's in the sand.
And are we on the brink of all shots going off and things going sideways? Always.
Mm-hmm.
But is the risk as bad as some outlets are saying? Well, it depends on where you live, right? There's definitely things going on over in the Middle East. The whole Gaza Strip, the whole everything in Iran, like there's a lot going on. A ton of B-2s were sent over. That tells me it's either a show of force to try to calm some tensions, or it's a plan for something further, an actual attack. If there is an attack, guess what? That's going to alter a lot of things for us. But do I need to worry about shots being fired in my neighborhood? Not necessarily. Shots in my neighborhood are probably because of a domestic dispute, right? Or someone's $4,000 of food stamps disappearing and they now have to sell their BMW, right? We've all heard that story. But we have to look at what's going on around us, microcosm level, microeconomy level, and also global to see, okay, if this happens, how will that affect me? And am I prepared for that? If a war kicks off in Iran, how will that affect me? And am I prepared for that? Let's workshop that for a second. First of all, it's a 50-50 if it's going to happen or not. I'm leaning towards the 50 of it's not going to happen the way some people are pushing it. But how is that going to affect me? Well, it can increase oil prices, which can then increase all my rubber goods, which we're also having a problem with the tariffs because those are being imported from China. And so those are going up in cost anyways. And all the auto parts stores have already said, hey, we're going to raise our prices preemptively just to be on top of it. Well, if those things don't change, guess what? They're still profiting more off of us either way. So guess what I'm going to be focusing on for my preps? Pick and pull. Right? Is that even right? The pick and pull places, where you can go get the parts from other places cheaper. I'm going to look for guys that have it on Amazon and well, not Amazon, eBay, and in my local newspapers and local places to find used stuff that's in great shape, so I don't have to deal with that. Right? I'm going to make sure that my 90-day food pantry is absolutely stacked to the gills and try to push that to 120, 200, 500 days, 1,000 days. That'd be amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the dream. I'm going to go get some chickens. I'm going to go plant my garden, right? Right now, depending on what zone you live in, you should have seeds started. Some of you are like, I'm already ready to harvest. Yeah, you're lucky. You're blessed. You live in a tolerant environment, where I live in this high desert insanity where we got snow last week and now it's 70 degrees today. It's weird, right? You've got to look at your scenario, because nothing we say or anyone else says necessarily lays claim to your headspace and what's going on in your micro world. You've got to take care of that first. That's what you can control. According to how I've always believed, is like I can only control so much. And what I have control over, I need to do a darn good job of. The better job I do at that, the more freedom I really have.
So one of the threats that has been all over the news lately is what's going on with Tesla, right? The cars, the dealerships. Do you own a Tesla? You're near to a dealership. And so if so, what's your plan? What are you going to do about it? I mean, what is your risk? I think here locally, I haven't seen anything. I have seen a few things in the news here locally.
There's been some stuff in Salt Lake City.
Yeah. But obviously, I have a daughter who owns a Tesla, so I'm a little concerned for her. Not terribly, but so yeah. What's the risk there?
What's funny is the most Teslas were bought by very liberal people.
Mm-hmm.
And now very liberal people are trying to destroy Teslas owned likely by very liberal people and some conservatives. Like where's the logic in any of that?
Yeah. Again, more confusion.
Why am I going to
number
go
two, why
destroy
destruction?
somebody else's personal property because I'm angry? Like, that's like you saying, Scott, you're ugly, and me going out into the street and punching the first person I see because you told me I was ugly and I'm mad at you. That's the logic behind that liberal left push, right? Well, they didn't call me by my right pronouns. I now identify as a ninja. My pronouns are he, ya, right? It's I don't even know. It's insanity.
Yeah.
It's delusion.
There's a lot of people though that are seeing that there's some reports coming in that whole movement is highly funded. Yeah. And we know it's probably another Soros project or some other huge advocate against freedom and liberty. And so that's something to also be concerned with, is like, why is anybody knows that if you can't hold your own in an argument, you immediately turn to ad hominem and violence and throwing a tantrum. Like, you literally lost the argument. You have no control of yourself. You have no self-control at all. And so instead you're just going to rage and throw a tantrum. Like, what kind of, like, I feel like that's almost like that whole leftist ideology is now turning in on itself. It's like people are coming. I've actually seen videos of, there was another, I think there was another huge thing where somebody was, anyways, I can't remember exactly what it was, but there were a bunch of Democrats showing that, hey, I'm tired of this party and what we're doing and what's been going on. I don't want to have anything to do with it anymore myself. So it's kind of like it's almost like they're turning in on themselves. And when you're fighting it, like, Tesla is one of the major contributors to environmental programs and quote unquote saving the environment with their electrical vehicles. And all of those ideologies are now destroying the very thing that they were so passionate about. Like, what is going on? It's just crazy to me. And so that's a legit, if I had a Tesla right now, I'd be concerned a little bit, no doubt, and want to see what's going on and probably try to drive it as little as possible, because I don't want to have somebody damage it. If anything else,
Now I'm getting worried for Toyota because terrorists love the Hilux. The whole Hilux model is like phenomenal. It's indestructible. So that's why terrorist groups, Middle Eastern factions have it all over the place. It's so good they even showcase it in movies. So hopefully Japan doesn't do anything crazy and get Toyota in trouble, because like I don't want to lose my vehicles.
Keep what you got. Keep what you got. So another thing that's been in the news that we've heard on for months and months is about employment, right? Because that is always either a big number, or a big beat, or a big miss. And so, that's on my mind regularly, also in combination with AI, how that's going to affect my own personal employment. What are the risks there, and how can I mitigate that? Am I looking forward enough to see, okay, this is how I need to start to change now? Because the company I work for is moving towards AI, integrating AI as much as possible. They do realize that if we don't change now and ahead of our competition, we're going to get left behind. So I am kind of being compelled to cooperate, to participate in that. And of course, that's causing me to think, okay, how is this going to change what I do and my income and my position with the company and so forth? So I think, again, another thing, what are the risks out there? What are the threats of the day? Because we are in the last of days. There's no question about it in my mind. This is the end of days, and unfortunately, I can't fully unplug from the system yet, so I have to continue to participate. But how do I choose to participate? What do I choose to not participate in, and how is it going to affect me?
I mean, even the market's been up and down. Like it went down and then it's kind of headed toward back up and then went back down again. Like,
and gold's staying pretty steady.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Right. That's also another indicator. When gold starts moving, that's when you got to pay attention. That's when you see big swings.
Well, that's my sign. I've mentioned that before. When that goes to the moon, that's my sign to bug out.
Yeah.
That's when it's when the chaos is really gonna when that breaks. We know that the systems have started to break or already broken, and things are going to go south. So
it doesn't need to go to the moon to know, though. Like if it doubles where it's at now, we're screwed.
And I guess that would be considered a moonshot as well. What's your I guess it depends on each person. I hear, gold, silver, they're like a rocket ship. Like, no, they're not. They're going up, but they're not going straight up, right? Like a rocket ship would. So it just depends on your point of view and how you describe things, I guess. But
they're like a Chinese spy satellite connected to a helium balloon that's about to cross the United States and fall, like that old story.
Something like that.
Potentially. So it's ionosphere is where we're at now.
I think
gold and silver.
Speaking of the space, another big story this month was the people being brought back from that 9-month stay where it was only supposed to be 10 days.
If you believe that crap.
Yeah, at the there was a video going around saying, "Hey, that guy, I don't think that guy on the right's floating. Like, be careful." But it's kind of interesting to literally have like the government have a private company actually, instead of NASA, take care of this issue.
Yep.
And it was just like, wow, that was
very interesting.
It was very interesting.
Another rocket being launched in the past day or so on a secret mission for the government instead of NASA. Okay, what's going on there, right?
Yeah, it's funny too because everybody's like, and when they came back, they landed in the Gulf of America. Wait a minute, the Gulf of Mexico. Wait, the Gulf of whatever it is now. Like it was a little bit of that. That was kind of interesting.
Cheesy.
We talked about that in a prior show, the Gulf of America, right? This is crazy. So one of the reasons I found out why Trump renamed it is for oil rights. Did you guys
Yeah,
hear
I heard
this?
that too. I heard that. Yeah.
So it's a way to skirt around the law that Biden put into place. So there will be no more drilling in the law, it said, in the Gulf of Mexico. And by renaming it, now it allows new contracts to go out because they're now drilling in the Gulf of America. I'm like, dude, that is some sniper shady stuff and brilliant on both. Like, I'm just like,
Yeah.
wow, but also like, oh my gosh. Like, that's how obscure and obscene and insane and genius everything in this world is right now.
And then, kind of, I know we talk about this again all too often, but I'll just bring it up. Kind of my closing thought is that there's the frog in the pot of boiling water situation, where as if we were able to jump right to this point in time from even a couple of years ago, or even several months ago, and see the condition, what's going on right now. We've become accustomed to all the changes and all the information, how fast it's coming at us. And we're becoming used to it. Like, oh, this is all now normal. But I mean, go back, of course, the further you go back, the more stark the difference is going to be. But try to realize that we are that frog in a pot of boiling water. And of course, if you don't know the story or how it goes, is if you put a frog in a pot of cold water and put it on the stove, it will stay there until it boils to death. Whereas if you put it in a pot with hot water, it'll jump right out, right? So I believe we are in a hot pot of water right now that we need to do our best to jump out of and prepare for, and just try to mitigate all those potential risks out there, and at least try to recognize them. Create that list, like I do, which is a mile long, and just think about them consciously, and think, okay, what can I do to minimize my family's risk for this or that, if you feel anything in particular is a risk for you. So
One of the things that we all need to look at is how to protect our families more effectively. And there's a lot of ways to protect. Most people, men especially, will go to the physical, martial arts, guns, weapons, ammunition, stuff like that for protection. And there's some legit, that's definitely part of it. And another part of protection is making sure you have food storage, you have emergency backup food, cash for, getting around and doing things, emergency fund, making sure that you have, the number one cause of bankruptcy or leading cause of bankruptcy is health concerns. And so make sure you have good health insurance, make sure you have good life insurance. Like, is crap going to hit the fan before you die? Are you willing to roll the dice and say, you know what, I'm not buying life insurance because Jesus will come before I'm going to die. Are you willing to roll the dice? If you are, then that's your choice. But really think about it. Like, people, you may die before he comes again. So getting life insurance to protect your family is good. Other things are like having a good plan in place for when things happen, and understanding how to mitigate risks that are out there in the world. Like, understanding what's happening in the world is important. You can't stick your head in the sand and think that's going to protect you. You got to open up your eyes, look around, and see what else can I do to protect my family in some other area. Like, let's say you're really good at you've got a ton of food storage, but now you've got no health insurance. Well, now you get to protect your family there. Maybe you need an emergency fund. Maybe you need some other, like, look at what you have and thumbs up. Good job. Thank you. Great work. Now your next level is, okay, what can I do to mitigate risks that are going on in the world? And I would also be aware of what's going on in the news, but try to find a way to balance that if you can, and be in harmony with like what's really happening and what's really important in your personal life. Because we can get caught up. I get caught up regularly. Let's put it this way. I get caught up in what's going on in the world, and I'm going to save the world. And my wife's like, hey, what about us? Your kids, like, you got to save us first. Like, oh yeah, that's right. So I got to remember that, like, your first, as a parent, as a husband, as a wife, your first role is to your world, your kids, your family, your neighbors, your world. And then let's go save the world. If everybody got together and just did what they were supposed to do, the rest of the world would work itself out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's a great thing what you just said, Shane.
Cool.
Any last final thoughts, Scott?
Well, we had a question. I want to address this question real quick.
So,
A little off topic, but I wanted to kind of finish off on this.
still kind of
Neil,
on
thanks for
topic.
the
It's a
question.
risk, it's a threat
Yeah.
we need to mitigate. Yeah.
The question is this. I'll just show it. Got an EMP question. So an EMP strike has been discussed. And in those cases, all electronics are gone. So how does owning communication radio not get hurt? You've seen tons of ads and doesn't want to jump too fast on anything. My response is very simple. I've looked into a lot of different products. I bought some Faraday bags because it's a good first line of defense, but they're not foolproof. The problem in the United States is we haven't tested anything to the severity that it needs to be tested. Supposedly Russia has, but our government agencies haven't tested it. The private research that I've gone through has found that insulation, multi-layered insulation is best. And so I put them in a Faraday bag, and then I put it in a Faraday garbage can.
A cage. Yeah.
I got a metal garbage can. I insulate the inside with cardboard, and it's just one of those small ones. It's like 1.5 feet tall.
Galvanized.
I insulate that with cardboard, and I make sure that there's no metal protruding through the cardboard. I've got a couple layers. Then I put my electronics in the bag in there, and then I put cardboard on top, and then I close the lid. And then the lid, if it's metal sealed all the way around, it's good. You can also do something like that with metal ammunition boxes, the old metal ammunition boxes. Take the rubber grommet out, fill it with some tinfoil. You can even seal everything up and run some duct tape, not your plastic one, but actual metal tape, ducting tape around the outside, and that'll help secure that a little bit better. Those are, from the research that I've been able to understand, those are some of the best ways to do it.
Yeah, Rebecca, anything that will keep your electronics coming in touch with the metal is really how that insulates. You could really use anything. Cardboard is plentiful and easy to cut and shape for whatever size container you do.
Everybody's probably got 5 or 6 Amazon boxes lying around, right?
At
or
least.
Walmart or something. But yeah, I've got one that I've actually used a old yoga mat.
Okay, yeah,
insulation as well.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that work. Yeah, that's the key, is just not have any contact with the metal. So that's the cage around it. And then I'll also double my electronics up into those Faraday bags, because I find that I still get a signal when I have my phone in a single bag. Put it in a second bag, I don't get a signal. So I've got double layers of Faraday bags. So, and then I do have a larger Faraday, an actual, I guess, retail made Faraday bag. That's a rollover bag that's guaranteed to work. So that's for the larger items. Nice. But yeah, you don't need to spend that kind of money on that kind of product. But you can get Faraday bags on Amazon fairly cheap, all different sizes.
What are the tests coming back saying, like, if you maybe unplug the battery? Is that something for now until people can get the Faraday bags? Like,
well, the thing that has the most is the most vulnerable is anything that's plugged into the grid. That's going to be the first thing that's the most vulnerable. So unplug everything you've got, all your electronics, your computers. And so I guess it really depends on the distance. So the strength of the EMP from the explosion or whatever it is. So it could potentially survive just being unplugged, because the grid acts like a big antenna, will collect the signal and then damage your electronics. But if you're closer, and who knows, the distance is really what's going to be affected, like Scott was saying. But yeah, just have some inexpensive Faraday bags you can stick your laptop in. And if the grid's destroyed, you're not going to be able to use your laptop anyway. But yeah, communication devices, your radios, your ham radios, just your AM, FM, world band radios and such in Faraday bag.
So I have a laptop that's in a Faraday, and it's loaded. I have a hard drive loaded with movies and videos, how-tos that I've downloaded from YouTube, so that, we can still use it. Otherwise, it's just going to be a really expensive and not very good Frisbee, right?
Right.
Laptops will be garbage.
Yeah. Yeah, Faraday, a big job site toolbox, that's a great idea. Yeah, make sure that lid touches tight metal on metal, and maybe even remove the paint between the layers, right? So that you've got a good metal on metal closure, and that make sure there's no openings, like where the lock goes, and maybe make sure that's there's no because if any of those frequencies come into the box at all, it can destroy. So it's got to be completely sealed off.
I've seen in movies, I'm sure it's great. How true is it? We don't know, but in the book, even the one going home, he met a guy and he had chicken wire in the walls of his house, and he used that as a Faraday cage. Is that close enough? I mean, that doesn't.
That won't stop
there's a little bit of holes.
That won't stop the EMP, but it will help to. It's more for communications, like for spying and for wiretapping, those types of things.
They can't get through that
right
easily. Okay.
Right. When I was working on the NSA data center over here, they have a copper grid lining all their walls. It's like a copper wire mesh. And so that's kind of their Faraday cage for, I don't think that'll keep out any the EMP out of that, but
those are really more for EMF, right? They're dampeners to reduce magnetic interference into the building, right? Electrical magnetic interference into the building. And EMP is a much larger scale event. And so in some cases, the data, well, I shouldn't say the data, the theories that's postulated on this is that it'll affect a certain area, which then affects the whole grid, because if one section of the grid's down, the whole grid can collapse. So your devices may not have been affected at all, but you will have zero power available, even if the EMP goes off 1,000 plus miles away from you, or 2,000, right? So it's good to just have some in a backup, and it's good to have a home backup system for your energy, right? You can go to survivalfrog.com, use our code PrepperTalk10 to get 10% off some of their stuff. They've got some really good small kits, but you can also go to preppertalkradio.com, and we've got links to a couple different companies that we like. Lion Energy, we like Goal Zero, we like Opus. So there's some really good different options for you to have some backup power, but you can buy with most of those kits a really good Faraday bag to cover them so that they're protected. Just keep them unplugged when you're not using it.
And always remember to let your meat age, let it bleed out, especially wild game. That's the conversation in our chat here. So good stuff.
Good final thoughts, though.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for listening to Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded. Make sure to hit up our website and our resources that are available there. We'd love to have you support the show at our store and get some merch, and use our affiliate links to make sure that you get prepared. If you're going to get prepared anyways, you might as well have a discount. And if you use our code, you get 10% on most places. And we'd love to help you get better prepared and do it at a financially in a way that it benefits you financially as well. Speaking of which, make sure that you go to parisclough.com/Prepper Talk Radio, and you'll get a chance to see, it'll be linked in the show notes. You'll get a chance to download my ebook to help you put more money back into your bank account every month, and use that money to get out of debt, build your savings, build your preps, and get yourself better prepared. So have a great day. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for sticking with us live. We had a good crowd tonight. Great questions, great comments. And those of you who are listening on the radio, once again, those that are listening on the podcast platforms, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify, not Apple Tunes, make sure to give us a 5-star review if you feel like we deserve it. We'd love to have it. And thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one.
See you next week.
Good night, everybody.